This was a big news story during the week. The slew of draft picks that Tasmania have been handed ahead of the 2028 season. So I'll kind of go into this here. 2027 National Draft will be the first draft that the Devils are in. They will receive picks 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13.
Is that it?
Sorry?
Is that it?
In 2027?
I'm joking. It's a Worcester fix.
It's but, Druzy, but 5, 7, 11, and 13 have to be traded.
See.
But they can be rolled forward for up to 2 years.
That's good. That gives them the flexibility. So my understanding is that if they can't find suitable players for these trades, like, you know, a team couldn't say, oh, give us pick 5 for Jaisa Wrong from Fremantle. Yeah, like a team can't exploit them that way. They can roll it forward, which I think helps their flexibility.
Correct. So this is probably the biggest divergence from the Gold Coast and GWS models. The Giants took 11 of the first 14 players in 2011, and I think the Gold Coast took 7 of the first 11 in their first season. So they took all of the picks.
Yeah.
And not the players. So that changes a little bit. And then leaning into that is the extra salary cap that they have been given.
Yeah.
This Tasmanian team. They will have $5 million to work with outside the salary cap. I'm not 100% sure the time period that salary covers.
First 2 years, it says.
First 2 years.
We're talking about the sign-on bonus.
Sign-on bonus.
Sorry,
yeah.
Is that different to what you were saying about the expanded salary cap?
No, that's it. So the Devils will have access to a $5 million sign-on bonus fund to sit outside the salary cap and be used within their first 2 years.
Nice.
So there it is.
Yeah.
A maximum of $3 million can be spent in either year.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Very, very interesting. So that is going to give them the ability to go after some big fish. That's why most players are kind of leaving their contracts open around that year, right?
Yeah.
So they can sort of look to get a little bit money in the door.
Yeah, it'll either help them like get a bigger contract with their existing club or obviously move to Tasmania.
Yes, for sure. 2028, 2029 national drafts, they'll also get some extra picks as well. And as I said, they can roll those 2027 ones forward a little bit. The list size will be flexible with up to 48 players over the first years 2, 3, and 4. Existing AFL talent, the Devils will be able to sign up to 18 out-of-contract AFL players across their first 2 years. And priority access, I found this a really interesting part of this. The Devils will have priority access to players as father-sons if their father was born in Tasmania and played at least 100 AFL games.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So anyone come to mind?
Nick Riewoldt.
Jack Riewoldt.
Jack Riewoldt.
Yeah. I guess those. Yeah.
Richo.
Yeah. My mind went to Richo first and I was like, there's got to be someone younger than
Pearce.
Alistair Lynch. Alex Pearce.
Yeah.
I don't think Richo have kids.
He's got kids.
He's got kids.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm almost certain of that. So there's some big things here.
Where to start?
How? What'd you say?
I said where to start.
There's
a lot to go through.
So what would you guys say about the salary element of this and being able to pay players? How do you think the Devils should approach this?
I think that clearly the AFL, the entire like framework of this is built around trying to get Tasmania more competitive quicker than say even a GWS took 5 years. I reckon they played finals in 16 after debuting in 11.
Which is pretty good.
That is actually really good. So they're trying to at least emulate that. I think there's also the probable factor here that in theory it's probably going to be harder for Tassie to get players to come play for Tassie and live in Tasmania. No disrespect to the state, but we're talking about like elite athletes here who probably want to live in bigger cities generally. Obviously, it's generalising. Versus a Sydney.
Except for Geelong.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, I mean, it might be the opposite, but, let's say, they had a Harley Reid living in Hobart. I just don't know. Or maybe that's a bad example because Harley is staying loyal, but I'm sure there's tons of examples of players who would probably just love to live in Melbourne and Sydney and be a big time AFL player. So as a result, this is obviously adding that incentive in. How should they use it? I think that if you look at the GWS and Gold Coast models, I don't have the data in front of me, but the distinction between them was that Gold Coast went for like older players for a start and players in their prime. So they obviously went for Gaz, they spent a larger portion of that salary on Gary Ablett Jr. Then they added like Jared Brennan and Rischitelli and Gunston and not Gunston and Bock.
See, I reckon I remember the two biggest ones from early on was obviously no bigger than Gary Ablett, but then the other one was Bock.
Yeah, Nathan Bock. That's
Nathan
right.
Bock, centre half back. he probably doesn't sound like a big
Where
name.
did they get him from?
Adelaide.
Yeah,
He was the best centre half back in the comp.
Yeah, he was a good
when
player.
we used to talk about players as centre half back and full back.
Yeah, that's
he was
right.
like he was all Australian. He was a superstar. So they kind of went for both of those. I feel like the biggest distinction between the Giants and the Gold Coast is the Giants went more
younger, right?
They went younger and they went older players for less salary.
Yeah.
So like cheaper guys, Chad Corns,
Dean Brogan, Luke Power.
You threw me there with Dean Brogan.
Yeah.
Luke Power.
Phil Davies.
James McDonald.
No, Phil Davis.
Phil Davis was
Davis.
he was young.
He was more of a young.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, and then they recruited, like, you're right though, Druzy, in the sense that they went for younger, talented players, but not established stars already. Callum Ward.
Yeah.
Phil Davis.
Yeah.
Tom Scully.
Yeah.
Mind you, Scully probably won.
He was big money,
He was
wasn't
big money.
Big
yeah.
money. I reckon the biggest one that they went for in their prime was Ryan Griffin.
Yeah, that was a
Western
little bit
Bulldogs
later
captain.
on.
Bit later.
Later
He
on,
was
yeah.
some cousin of Peter.
Yeah, so they didn't, and you would have to say that the Giants did it a little better.
Well, wasn't the
yeah,
narrative
no
around
doubt.
Gold Coast that they gave too much money to young stars? That they're like, send them up to the Gold Coast. A lot of like young players had money that they'd never had before. And then
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of a little bit further down the track when Gold Coast would pay their players, like the draftees, they'd give them an immediate like extension and flesh out like massive 4-year contracts
Yeah.
to keep them. And then at the end of those contracts, those players left
yeah.
or left partway through. You're like,
Also, I think Gold Coast, in their build, they gave absolutely no thought to personality types, the different people that would be making like social groups in their club. Like I remember they used to say that there was like a church group, which was like
oh yeah,
Gary Ablett and a larger, like this sort of religious group that was in the club. And then there
Yeah.
was like this sort of like drugs group, and they didn't even sort of like each other. There was
Yeah.
like, stuff like that, which is clearly not ideal at a football club.
the strength of the draft was probably also a factor between these two clubs. Mind you, Gold Coast got Swallow Benell Day.
Strength. You mean year by
yeah.
year strength of the draft?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think Gold Coast draft was probably also compromised by pre-listed GWS players as well, which is another factor.
Do you reckon that hurt them? I didn't think of that.
Presumably. I'm forgetting exactly who the pre-listed players were for GWS, but I reckon Trelaw. Trelaw wasn't. I'm going to get that mixed up a little bit here, so I won't go down further that.
From a strategic point of view for Tasmania, I think the biggest difference between them and these two examples is there is no need for Tasmania to go down the route of attracting like a big superstar player as much as it is up there.
Yeah, from a marketing point
From
of
a
view.
marketing perspective,
That's a
they
great
don't
call.
need to sell the game.
Yeah.
They need to sell the team.
Yes.
And then there's a lot of things that come into that, but I think partly that is like there is like a big north-south divide in Tasmania that's sort of, it's a bit socio-political, but it's played out a lot through sport. Like I remember growing up and you'd get a lot of like just innuendo from your parents and stuff about like, the north, we're more hardworking and stuff like that. Just
Eagles players are tougher.
yeah, Eagles players are tougher, that sort of thing. But like, the north of the state sort of tended to produce like better footballers, but the south of the state obviously has a lot more money. It's based around Hobart. So it's, and even if you look at the state to today, you've got like the north is declining population and the south is rapidly exploding.
There you go.
Like that is sort of what it looks like. So what that means for the football team is they need to connect everyone, and they're going to obviously have to do that through the team. So I feel like it needs to have, the team has to sort of have that hardworking identity built into it to make the north feel included. Obviously everything is like based around the capital in the south. So that's sort of my take on it. I feel like they don't want to go too heavily here on like, you laughed at it before in my notes, Druzy, but like Galactico signings.
Talk to me about this. I want to hear you go on your Athletic Bilbao.
Well, I think Tasmania could like take a leaf out of the Athletic Bilbao. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that football club in Spain.
I am. They have Inaki Williams, who's a pacey right winger.
Oh, true.
Nice.
Yeah.
So they're from an area called the Basque Country, which is like northern Spain, southern France. Very rich cultural traditions there in the Basque Country. But they have a rule with their playing squad where it's like, I'm not suggesting Tasmania should do this exactly, but like they only have homegrown players. I think they're allowed like two. The club, this is like a club itself imposed thing. It's not the league or anything like that. They pretty much try and do everything from a homegrown perspective to kind of like reflect the ideals of the place. And I think Tasmania could go down a route like that. They're obviously not going to be able to do it that deeply because they're not going to have an academy to pull from in the same way that a soccer club is.
Yeah.
The league set up, and they're going to have to go to the draft and stuff like that. But I do think recruiting players at the start from like more so like when you're looking at a talent perspective, like rather than a big name, I think they should go for some of the guys that are in their prime or like pushing 30 that are real like have a hard-working quality. So some of the names that I looked at for players that in 2028 will be around that sort of 28, 29 age, I'd be going for someone like a Cal Wilkie, Harris Andrews, Sam Taylor, Josh Dunkley, Hugh McCluggage. That type of player.
I was going to suggest Alex Pearce, but he's 30. And
He's a Tasmanian.
He just signed like a short-term contract to that period like you were talking about before.
There you go.
So I think he'd be eyeing that up as well. He'll be
100%.
pretty compromised by then.
I think he will be looking at the captaincy too, given the fact
possibly.
that he's the captain of you guys. But that's a big one. So I think homegrown talent is important to kind of. I think that'll be like big for grassroots football in Tassie as well. That if you can sell that, like you can get into the Tasmanian team. And if you have more of a shot being a Tasmanian, they can like really cultivate like an energy around it.
Can I just point out as well, the Tassie rules allow for the 18 out of contract AFL players. They can sign any out of contract player as a free agent. So they don't need to be looking at who's a free agent that's going to be out of contract in 2027. They can sign Colby McKercher, if he's out of contract, directly to the list as a free agent, and North Melbourne get a compensation pick.
Wow.
That was also true of the other two expansion clubs, but that's another factor to consider.
So who are the best Tasmanians in the comp right now? Question without
I'm going to
notice.
look at your notes.
Yeah, that's hard
'cause
not to look
I
at.
don't rank them in my list. The ones that were obviously from 2023, we talked about Colby McKercher. Riley Sanders, another highly rated Tasmanian.
Yep.
Seth Campbell was another one that comes to mind.
Ryan Mansell, Sam Banks.
Wow, a lot of Richmond flavour there.
There's always been a really strong connection with Tasmanians to Richmond.
Yeah, right, because of Richo.
Well, he is a big one.
Jack Rewald as well.
Oh, true,
The Gales
Yeah,
were
okay.
originally
Wow.
Tasmanian.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to think of more, but there are more. There's definitely always
The
been.
Tigers.
There's a lot of Richmond supporters in Tasmania.
Tigers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tassie Tigers.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Someone also mentioned in the chat there, reminded me of Carmichael Hunt and Israel Folau. Remember that
Yes.
circus, like just recruiting those players?
That was weird, wasn't it?
That was
But
absurd.
that's the lengths that they had to go to as non
Yeah.
AFL states, right? So Tasmania's not going to have that sort of a
That's true.
an element around it.
Bringing a Hobart Hurricane.
One thing I wanted to ask about I reckon the father-son thing is a fascinating element of this, that they're going to be able to do that. This comes back into what I was saying about Tassie in general and the north-south thing, and actually the idea about playing for Tasmania as in a footballing context. Do you think that the sons of those players would actually choose Tasmania? Because I'm assuming they get a choice.
It depends where they live. Like, I presume Richo and Rewalt's kids, for example, live in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah, they work in media. So it's possible. I mean, you're probably a good example of this. Any temptation to support Tasmania as a Tasmanian who supports North?
Yeah, like definitely. But
Good way to get some success.
I do think and they might see it in the same way, but I feel, I don't know. I feel like I really embrace the idea of a Tasmanian team, but that's not necessarily how everybody feels in the state.
Yeah.
Like there is that sort of disconnect, and I think that might hurt the father-son thing if they don't do all of this right.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big reason as well. The North-South divide was why they branded as Tasmania. They'd be the only team that has the state as their name.
Yeah, exactly.
Until the NT Crocodiles come in.
Well, they're a territory, so still different category.
Come on. What's the difference between a territory and a state?
There'd be
Governmentally.
legal differences there, but I don't know exactly what. But there is a pretty big one.
True footy.
True footy.
Get all your-
and there's only the West Coast Eagles. I suppose they're a state team as well.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Dogs.
Yeah.
The only ones that exist in WA. So
Totally.
Get out
What
of it.
else we got?
Is that it on Tassie?
No, I had another point I was going to make.
Were you?
Yeah.
I think I've kind of exhausted my questions about the Tasmanian team.
Oh, actually, I do want to mention one more thing. They have another mini draft, don't they? Is that in here?
Well, I put a section in here on like what Tasmania, those drafts obviously that are heavy in favour of Tasmania, like what that does to other rebuilding clubs. Is that what you meant?
No, but you
Okay.
go down that path. Who do you think are the most affected clubs?
Well, I guess you've really just got to look at the bottom, like who you think's going to be in the bottom 6. I think the one, like you've got the usual suspects, obviously your West Coasts and your Richmonds and your North Melbournes that are down there at the moment. Like you could look at it, it's not necessarily my opinion, but you could look at a team like Collingwood, who are good right now, have a very aging list. Like could they fall victim of the could they get bad at the wrong time here? Fall away fast?
Oh, there's no doubt that from a purely list management perspective, they're in the most vulnerable state of any club.
There's poo in pants.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
How many drafts are going to be compromised?
3.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's another team. So in essence, the draft will never be the same. There's like another team to.
That's true. Yeah, you don't think about it like that.
Yeah, and then I suppose more free agency moves are possible, more compensation picks. It's going to kill it. But what I will point out as well, there is 4 mini draft selections. Do you remember how the mini draft worked for GWS? Gold Coast did not get this. GWS did. They got to like pre-list or like certain players in a window.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm with you.
Did Gold Coast get that with O'Meara?
No, because that was a GWS mini draft. GWS could not get O'Meara, but they could trade the rights to him. So Gold Coast gave them pick 4. O'Meara went to Gold Coast, and GWS with pick 4 picked like Matt Buntine or like something like that.
Yeah, right.
Bunty.
Yeah, he was either 4 or 5. I can't remember exactly which pick he was, but Jesse Hogan, Jack Martin, Jager O'Meara, 3 of the best WA talents all came out of that mini drafts, and to different extents had some success without a whole lot, but and Brad Crouch was the 4th.
Oh yeah.
And then Adelaide obviously traded their pick to get him. And then drafted Matt Crouch later. Yeah, drafted Matt Crouch later. So that is another factor here. I suppose tying into like how this will affect clubs. Clubs can still trade with Tasmania. And so Tasmania needing to trade picks for established players does at least allow Collingwood to cash in, as an example, on some of these trade assets that Tasmania need to pick. They need to trade pick 5 and 7 and 11 and 9 and 11 or whatever. So there is opportunities that weren't true when GWS and Gold Coast came in to get back into the draft. I will also say that while it's theoretically true that it's tough to rebuild when teams are, compromising the draft when there's expansion, West Coast won the spoon when Gold Coast entered the competition and it turned out just fine.
Yeah.
Also, the draft has already been compromised for a number of years now.
It's quite funny, actually. I was reading something the other day and they were talking about how it affected the other teams that were poor at the time that Gold Coast and GWS came in. And 2 of the ones that they mentioned in that were Brisbane and Melbourne, who have both won a flag since.
True.
Even though Brisbane, I mean,
Yeah, right.
you could still argue there's a connection there, right? Because that was like 2010, 2011. Brisbane was spooners in 2017?
Yeah.
Their last one?
Yeah, Rayner.
Yeah.
Pick one.
Yeah. So like it obviously did, you can't say that didn't affect them, but they have still won flags.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Got to be a bit of a rough start to life for Tasmania though, like without the stadium, like that's still up in the air. There's a lot of discussion going on around that football team. So
While that's still hanging over their heads, like I feel like there'll be a level of toxicity
100%.
amongst the public as well.
Yeah.
With people supporting and not supporting, etc. But
there's going to be so much grey area as they come into the league.
Yeah, bit of a shame, honestly.
Feels a bit rushed.
It does. We've got some people in the comments. Stephen Camilleri says Tasmania is a bigger version of Geelong, so they need to start selling farms to country boys. I mean, obviously Geelong have the priority of being very close to Melbourne. So people that want that lifestyle still have the
access to Melbs.
Access to a big city. So I think that's a big deal. I mean, I think anyone that's been to Hobart in recent times, like it's a pretty nice place to be. Like I said, like it's really, as a city, it is like flourishing, it's growing.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone say it's not nice.
Yeah. But certainly you are, like, you're slightly more isolated, obviously.
Settle for the simpler things in life if you're heading to Tassie, nice farm, good people, go to work, honestly.
Nature walks.
You know, who needs the big smoke?
Bit cheaper.
Yeah.
All of those sorts of things.
Get paid a fat stack of money if you go and play there.
Well, that's going to be the big thing to begin with, isn't it?